Once again, it's time for the Cult of Honesty, and we have an exciting show tonight, honey.
We do?
You're looking good.
I'm not sure about that. I'm trying to be as modest as possible.
Well, I tell you what, you're working it thin.
I don't know if that's
awesome.
the right word for it.
Well, I mean, this should be a good time tonight, and hopefully everyone will appreciate the show after the fact and during the fact.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make some statements. I hope that our audience would consider the idea of what cognitive dissonance is. So many times we have these beliefs, you see, and they don't correspond with the facts. And tonight, I guarantee you that not everything will be factually based, but people will be attempting to say what they perceive to be true. And so maybe we can put things together in various categories and see how the outcome is. So let's try to do our best to think about what cognitive dissonance is and rethink that and try to deal more with the facts and rethink our positions on everything, because I think that rethinking is healthy for the mind. Also, we've been talking a lot about confirmation bias. And what are your thoughts on that, honey?
Well, before I read about it and realized there was a name for it, I knew that was something that people do. And I think we do it every day, and we need to get past it, I believe, because from the things that I've been reading, people's lives are at stake, based on their, like I was telling you today, I think about the, Greg might know about this, the sagging bridge in Green Bay. And a driver goes over it, and he calls in, and he says, the bridge is sagging. Well, people just can't believe that the bridge is sagging. And it's they're biased, like this bridge is a good bridge, it's built well. So they send a police officer out there to look over the bridge, and he comes back and says there's nothing wrong with the bridge. And later on they asked him, well, you went and looked at the bridge, and yet it's sunk 2 feet. What's the deal? And he was like, well, I thought in my mind too that there's no way the bridge could be sinking. 40,000 people go across the bridge every single day, and no, but we haven't had a lot of phone calls about it. So based on just that information in his own little head, he could have, killed a lot of people or been responsible for the deaths because he did not check it out well because of his confirmation bias.
Confirmation
It'll kill
bias.
you, folks. It will kill you.
It will kill you. And the same thing is true in the context of modesty. It will kill you. I have so many stories that I could share tonight, and my wife and I could go on and on and on. But this show isn't so much about us tonight. It's about those people who are so willing to come on the Cult of Honesty in the context of a Google Hangout. And so you're probably going to hear a lot of people being ever so transparent. And so without hesitation, let's get Greg into the conversation. Greg Bray, how are you doing tonight?
I am excellent. I'm a little hesitant, though, on this because one of the primary driving forces behind this topic, Esta Ann, is having some technical difficulties, and she's not... she was able to join us, but she wasn't able to contribute, so she's rebooting her computer right now. So I guess what I'd like to do is just introduce the topic, and then we just lost the other female participant in this. So we have a bunch of dudes talking about modesty. And Rhonda, at
What
least,
am I,
we do have you in the studio. So thank you for – oh, hey, there's Robin back. So anyway, but yes, the topic today we wanted to talk about is modesty. Is that Lisa? Oh, excellent. We have. I was saying that we need to get her in here. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if she'd appear on camera, but because vampires, show up. Okay. Sorry. Gathering my thoughts now. The topic today is modesty, and very specifically, modesty as a social and cultural norm, not necessarily something that is a personal viewpoint about what I think I should wear, but what I think you should wear. The concept that we can tell other people how modest they need to be and how they need to act, as well as the double standards that are associated with that in between the genders, and how religion and tradition has tied itself so strongly into those topics. So I am excited to delve deeper into this subject, but I'm not going to introduce it any more than that. I'd love to, if Esta, since this was your topic, and or Rhonda, we
Well, it's not really my topic.
Her
to be
video
honest
or
with
audio
you.
is working quite yet. So, does anybody else want to recap the shows that we did? Okay, hi. Can you give us a little bit more about why this is such an important topic?
Okay, I just got up and running, so I didn't hear what you just said. Let me see if I get my video on. Okay.
All right, I was just introducing the topic as modesty, the double standard, the social normative value, and saying that people do feel that they have the right to tell other people how they should act or dress.
Right. I'd like to address this first by clarification and perspective. The first thing I'd like to say is that there are two distinctions. One is addressing appropriately, and the other is something that is been coined modesty doctrine. And addressing appropriately would be the discussions that people have regarding their opinions, and everyone is entitled to their opinions. Usually at this point in my life, my opinion is my life, so I act according to my opinion. Where modesty doctrine is according to people who seem to have authority over other people, like in religions. And they dictate what is godly and not godly, and what is appropriate and not appropriate, and they label people and demean people because of it. As perspective goes for appropriate dress, that is a lot of times left up to discretion. If a woman is working and her dress is inappropriate and she's approached by her corporation and they have a policy with a dress code, then she has to abide by it to continue to be employed in that position. As for walking to the supermarket and using a specific example, maybe the shirt is a little bit low cut and someone is offended by it, well, that person really needs to go look at his corn and not make judgment on her. And that's what we're discussing. Whereas we're talking about modesty doctrine, that is dictating and demeaning and devaluing people based on their dress selection, when in their heart is pure and they're being accused. Those are the different things, Greg. That's what I'm talking about. That's what the show was about. And it's a real big problem for both men and women, not only in our country, but throughout the world.
Now, I did want to add that I don't think we need to absolutely limit it in scope to that, and the conversation will certainly drift as it will. But that's where we wanted to get started, was the modesty doctrine and where that goes. And I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble concentrating. It's really hot in this room, so excuse me.
I have a question. Is this restricted to, it seems to be strictly about dress? Am I correct in that, or modesty in general, or just pertaining to the way a person dresses?
I think we should talk about the overall schema and sort of the different opinions that people have on it. I don't know, is there anybody else who has any commentary specifically that they wanted to add, else including you, Daryl? I mean, that on this topic, like what brings that question up? Is there a driving force behind?
Well, modesty, I think, to a certain degree, is kind of a state of mind. I mean, if, of course, I understand we're directing it more toward others rather than the individuals in pertaining to oneself. But if a person is has a certain idea of modesty, Most certainly, it would probably be expressed somewhat through the way he dresses, but, I'm thinking that it would be affected in other areas also. And that was the reason for the question.
Okay, I think generally speaking, we're talking more about the social control aspects of it, the not so much a personal opinion about modesty, because I mean, of course, some people are comfortable in much more or less clothing or situations, but I think it has a lot. The conversation is a lot more poignant when we're discussing when other people are uncomfortable with the way that you are dressed or what you are doing or wearing. So has anybody in here been affected directly by this particular topic?
I get cat calls all the time.
From cats.
Shame on you.
Mostly
It
from
has to be the way you
cats.
dress.
That's probably because you shouldn't be wearing Lisa's shorts when you go out, Bob.
I'll tell you, I have been affected by this particular topic in a strange manner. It's the double standard specifically that gets me. Is that I guess in my opinion, or in many ways, especially in high school, like I was more modest than guys are supposed to be when it came to discussing certain topics, or not so much wearing certain things. But I did not fit the cultural norm of the way that a guy was supposed to act, and I was very affected by in general the double standards, and I still am. Oddly enough, this is more of a gender role.
What double standard are you talking about? What two different standards?
Well, there's several different double standards about this, or I guess loosely related to this topic. Specifically in this one, I know it's already veering off exactly the modesty course, but just a gender role double standard in that I'm a stay-at-home dad, and it's something that I can relate, I guess I should say, to being told how you should act based on your gender, your looks, anything like that, because there are very few people who are concerned about a stay-at-home mom being a stay-at-home mom. But I have been ridiculed or berated for not working, for not, providing an income for my family in that respect. And it's a significant issue that it actually took me some time to even just embrace the terminology of saying that I'm a stay-at-home dad instead of saying, I'm between jobs or something like that. But, I also have been personally affected in that there's double standards about the way that people are expected to act and dress, in that I am allowed and even expected in many cases to go shirtless, if I'm at the beach in some manner. So wearing a shirt is considered odd for a man to do. Wearing some sort of top in any fashion is actually questioned and looked down upon as if you're self-conscious about your looks. And in fact, that certainly was the case for me. But that is also an ironic twist on the modesty, and that men are not expected to have that sort. So I find that interesting.
You can move to New York. In New York, there's no such law.
The law, though, is not necessarily the same thing as the social norm.
Right.
Just a point for Daryl to clarify something. I think that, and I'm speaking for Ann because she was on my show Reflections, and we did speak about this somewhat. We didn't exhaust it, of course, but Daryl, she has a problem, and there is a problem with authority-driven edicts that say, you have to wear this, you have to wear a dress. There's a guy on YouTube and he says that women shouldn't wear pants. I mean, that's a part of it. If you do, then you are this or that, and you get labeled based on what you wear. I shared with Lisa in the Cult of Honesty on one of her posts, she put a link to a article concerning modesty, and I wrote out that whenever I was in the youth group at my church, we went, now living on the coast here on the Gulf of Mexico, you would presume you would have a lot of beach outings. But if you're in the Baptist church, you don't have a lot of beach outings because they really don't like you to, they call it mixed bathing. Even back when I was a teenager, that the boys and the girls, you just don't, wear bathing suits and get in the water together and frolic. So I had a brand new pair of Calvin Klein jeans on back in the day, and I wore them to the beach outing. And yeah, because I wasn't going to, I knew I wasn't going to get in, but a couple of people dragged me in anyway, and the jeans faded. I mean, I didn't wash them first, but they faded on everything. And I mean, everything. And so, I wasn't embarrassed because I really, I was just more ticked off. But that was one pastor. Then the next pastor that came along, he said, we're all going to go camping. And we went to the beach and we had fun. We got to wear bathing suits, and, nobody did anything inappropriate that I could see. And it was fun. It was relaxed. And it was just a matter of opinion. And now I will say each of these gentlemen, they were good guys, and it was just their opinion. In this instance, in my instance, they didn't say the Bible says, they just thought in their hearts or minds, whatever, I guess, this is probably the best way right now. And, I respected it. I may not have agreed with it, but if I wanted to go to the beach, I didn't wear the bathing suit with the first pastor. And the second pastor I did. So it really wasn't a big deal. I haven't experienced somebody saying or affecting me for the rest of my life, you have to wear this or that, being in a position of authority. But a lot of people have, and they've been hurt. And I think that is one of the things, the main thing I want to address is, being overly dogmatic or quoting the Bible, saying, Old Testament or New Testament passages that just don't apply, and putting those on somebody and on their life and then scarring them forever is horrible. That's it. That's all I'm going to say tonight.
It's not clear to me if we're actually defining some of these issues well. I mean, for example, I think that all cultures recognize that there's a difference, say, between the poor and the wealthy. But then every culture tries to find ways of exaggerating that difference. There are differences between men and women, and every culture finds ways of exaggerating that difference. So there are differences, and I suppose that when those differences are exaggerated, and those exaggerations enter into the issue of modesty, we need to, I think, separate the issue of the exaggeration of modesty and the authenticity of any real modesty. I would wonder if we want to recognize those as two different issues.
I think that the real issue at hand is the exaggeration. I mean, real modesty is a personal condition. I think. I don't know,
but
that I guess that's a fair point. But what I think the real pressing point behind this is more along the lines of social expectations and the roles and the rules that are enforced upon us by other people, even if we disagree, and the repercussions for not following those. Specifically, and I think modesty might just be too narrow of a term. I think gender roles it might be a better umbrella to look at. I mean, for example, one of the things that is often associated with modesty is sexual activity, the age at which, the number of partners, the virginity doctrine, and how that is unequally applied across genders. And there's so many other things that are associated with this question that just calling it modesty is not necessarily.
How regional would that be? I can't, I guess I live here in mid-state New York, and I can't think of any time in my life when I've ever heard anybody expect a different age of virginity for men as for women. I can't. I can't. If anything, it was that people. If I heard anything in the cultural expectation, it was that people expected to remain virgins until they were married, and age wasn't the issue.
But is that equally applied? I mean, yes, people may be expected to do that, but Melissa, it looks like you have something to say on that.
No, I'm just thinking I was surprised when you said that you didn't see a difference in men and women, because I definitely have. I mean, I grew up in the South. I don't know if that's a difference, but, I think that in general, men are expected to do whatever they want to do, and women are expected to remain virgins until they're married.
That could be a class thing, because I can tell you I grew up in an upper middle class home, and that was just absolutely not the case. In fact, I can't even remember hearing anything like that growing up, ever. I can't relate to it. Although I tell you, I've heard that, but I don't know anybody.
I mean, I'm not talking about my home.
Yeah. But no, I mean, even growing up, of course, I grew up in an upper middle class community too. Never heard anybody talk that way, ever.
Well, down.
Yeah.
Bob?
Yes.
Did you want to say something? All right. I wanted to address that. It is regional, and I do think that lucky for you and somewhat lucky for me, in the time frame that we were born with the Beatles and Woodstock and the freedom movement, and the majority of the people in the area who were Orthodox and didn't subscribe to this fundamentalist type culture, we had a lot of freedom. We had a lot of beautiful opportunity not to be indoctrinated by that kind of thing. In upstate New York, northern Jersey, this was extremely mild compared to what I've experienced over the last decade. And you think I would have been smart enough to avoid all the pain that I had to go through. I was married and I actually felt condemned. It was unbelievable. So it's not unlikely that we don't experience this and we're appalled when we hear it. But I think it is more rampant than before. And it's getting worse over the last 10 or 20 years because the pressures, I don't really know where this judgment is coming from, why it's so much more vivid, unless it's just been my experience because I got involved in legalistic Christianity. But now I'm aware of it.
Hasn't there always been like slut shaming? And you hear about that?
Yeah, when they used to call me in high school, when they used to call me a slut, I thought it was a compliment. Like, it was no big deal. It was no big deal. But, like, after...
But do you think the word slut itself it's intended to shame, even if you take it as a...
It is.
Well, you know what? I really didn't... It might be a personal issue because the people using it, it might have just because of my opinion of their other judgments and their other stuff. Maybe it didn't bother me, but it never bothered me before legalistic Christianity when I really, really was hurt. But honestly, the message was there to be pure and to be a virgin. But whether you engaged in sex or not was an intimate issue between you and your boyfriend or between you and it was private, and now it's like gossip in these communities, and they watch it. Look at her, she's wearing this. Oh, you saw cleavage, she's a slut. It's like the judgment is overwhelming in these days. That's just my experience, and I think we can all only speak from experience. And
I would actually disagree with that in saying we can certainly speak from more than experience. We can talk about trends and social statistics in that it's very, very clear in the United States that there's an extreme double standard for how men and women are treated, the expectations given to them. particularly when it comes to sexual activity. And
Okay, now I've got to be honest with you. I am very foreign to this. I never experienced this growing up, and even as an adult, maybe I just learned to ignore it.
Well, let's talk about some sexual behaviors, gender roles here, as your wife is sitting there quietly not talking about this issue next to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for mansplaining, Bob. But
yeah.
I love you, Greg. I love you, Greg.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't recall any time that I ever heard anybody expect. I hear people talk about that expectation, but I've never run into anybody who expected men to be sexually active, but women to remain pure. I don't know anybody that I'm familiar with who actually had that idea.
No, Bob, I don't think it was a matter of it being an expectation. I think it was just a matter of it being okay. To where, I live in a culture.
Let me take that back then. I don't know of anybody who thought it was okay. I didn't grow up with that. Yeah. And, maybe it's a community I grew up was unusual. I'll tell you what, I was 13 when I discovered that there are actually whites and blacks who don't get along, and it shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I said, what do you mean you can't get along with each other? What the hell is going on?
Bob apparently grew up in some sort of egalitarian utopia.
This was an IBM. This was an IBM community. It was an upwardly mobile.
How did it feel breaking out of that bubble wrap?
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you, I even as an adult, I guess growing up that way, when I run into the people who have some of these even racial biases, it doesn't even make sense to me. I can't even plug into it. I can't. It doesn't. But
did you ever see that sitcom Happy Days with Fonzie? And like the girls are supposed to be the good girls, and you had your bad girls, and Fonzie would like try to get the good girls and the bad girls, and some of the good girls would come on, Bob.
I have seen the program. I never watched it regularly, and I don't think I paid any attention to it other than to watch him kick a jukebox and make a record turn on. I just didn't do it. It just wasn't my thing.
You weren't in tune. Yeah, you were pretty much naive to this.
I was pretty much listening to Beatles records.
Yeah.
Melissa, did you have anything else to?
Wait a minute. When was the Fonz on? When was the Fonz on? When was it?
The 70s.
You were in like your 40s already.
Oh, I didn't even have
He wasn't allowed to watch TV.
During the 70s, I didn't even own a TV set.
I told you.
I owned a plasma.
Wait a second, Bob. So you're saying that you're Bob, so you're trying to say that you're all innocent, all you did was listen to the Beatles, right?
That's not innocent.
I'm just saying I didn't participate in that aspect of this culture, evidently. And I'll tell you, during the 70s, I didn't even own a TV set. Didn't want one, didn't need one. And I think I bought, I can't remember. I think I bought my first TV set, could have been like 1981, 82, somewhere on there.
But being a Beatles fan, you do understand that when they were younger, they had to go for shots of penicillin regularly because of their sexual activity. So they engendered the very gender role differences that we're talking about right now. So like you were hip to the fact that oh gosh, yes. When they were playing the cave or the cavern, I should say, in Germany.
Yeah.
And they were touring. They were doing those tours when they were like playing for like 6 hours at a time and stuff. They were.
I know that now.
They were
I didn't
promiscuous.
know that then. I know that now. I certainly didn't know that then, and I was actually very much interested in the music. I just.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to come to Bob's defense. I've heard him say he hasn't paid that much attention to the words. He likes the music, and I can identify that with that to a degree, but. I listened to the words. I know what they were singing about a lot of the time.
In a sense, though, I'm also saying that if I had run into this double standard, its chances are I would have just dismissed it as that's silly and gone along without really.
Well, and that's a huge problem. I mean, this does get dismissed. A lot of people are not even aware of it. In that people, I'm not saying that it's a problem that you personally would have dismissed it, but it's a huge problem that so many people are so ignorant of this and not willfully ignorant, but just not I guess it hasn't been brought up to them, that they've never really put any thought into it, and that to the point where if they haven't had that personal experience with it, they're not even going to recognize it and not. They'll sort of deny that it even happens until being very faced with it, much like people do this.
The math. How can a heterosexual guy be sexually active and a heterosexual woman not be sexually active? Who's the guy sexually active with?
But this is what Nelson was saying, is that it's okay for guys to be.
The neighbor's wife, Bob. The neighbor's wife.
Oh,
See, down here, South Florida, I live in the Fort Lauderdale area. It's a cultural cesspool. I like to say it, but that's the way that it was down here. And it actually, I mean, I'm a little older now. I'm not in tune as much with my kids, but in regards to the way it is in schools. But when I was growing up, the guy that slept with all the girls was considered a stud, and the girl who, if she slept with one guy, she was a slut. Yeah. And that was, looking. I mean, even then, I kind of scratched my head, but now it doesn't make any sense to me. But then, of course, you add the dynamic now where I'm a dad and I have a daughter and I have two boys, and I hate to say it, I'm guilty as charged. Where, when I find out that my son's talking to a girl, I get excited. When I found out that my daughter's talking to a boy, I get nervous. So it.
Nelson, what makes you nervous? What makes you nervous about that?
Because I know how boys think at my age. You know what I mean? And
but you don't know how girls think at that age.
No,
I just want to point that out. That
we're like, oh, he's really cool, and I want to get it on with him.
No, you're absolutely right. Given the world that we live in now, where there's text messages and Facebooks, and kids, put the phone on the counter, you read the text messages, and you see what and of course, now, I went to my 20th high school reunion a couple of months ago, and then you find out all the girls that had crushes on you. I'm like, geez, I could have had a hell of a lot more fun in high school if I'd have known this, but
that's conclusion.
Yeah, but the thing is you're right, and I still think to an extent that it exists today to where it's almost okay, but now I think we have where, even the homosexuality thing, it's almost cooler to be gay than straight, amongst the kids nowadays.
Especially when you're women. That's another great double standard, is that women are almost expected now, especially when drinking, to make out for men's entertainment or to get attention in any. There's a huge double standard in that. I want to hear more from the women on this topic, but before we do, I wanted to give a great anecdote here that explains this, because this actually. This popped up in my Facebook feed earlier today that really, I think, helps elucidate this. It was a joke that was put out there. It said that think about this in terms of locks, okay? If you've got a key that opens up a lot of locks, what's that called? That's called a master key, right? You can open up every lock in the building. That's a master key. You got a lock that gets opened up by a lot of keys? Well, it's called a shitty lock. That's the joke here. I mean, it's obviously, in reference to men and women. And that being said, another way I was personally affected by this is I dated a girl in high school who very actively thought the way, Nelson, that I think you are projecting on young men, and very actively was trying to convince me that it's time that we should get started. And I, being the man who had this expectation, was not ready to do that yet. And it caused not only issues for me at that point in our relationship and some major, direct emasculation from her and from my friends. But then even after that, expectations coming after me that I literally, until after I was married to my wife, my mom believed that she and I had had sex. And that had not been the case. The girl that I had dated, I dated her for 3 months in high school. There is that strong of a double standard about what men are expected to do. If this girl is available and wants it, then I am absolutely supposed to take that and or push for it even. And
I find this amazing, because I mean, to me, I I seem to remember even as a teenager someone telling me that men on average have this many partners and women on average have that many partners, and of course I'm a math student, and I'm thinking, let's see, combinations, permutations, no, not possible, can't work. It doesn't work that way. It just, and so I suppose that maybe I had said enough of that the people who really think that way left me alone.
Well, men have a tendency to stretch the truth on this particular topic, or women shrink it a little.
Yeah, perhaps, but yeah.
And why? Why would they do that? That's, I think, the question that we're getting at
because
here.
of that double standard that I'm not defending. I'm just saying that it exists. There's
I'm
that
not
double
clear
standard.
All right,
double
let me-
standard is. You're saying a standard for men
I think
versus a standard for
Esta
women.
is trying to.
I'd like to address that. I think it's depending on the worldviews that your parents gave you and where those worldviews came from. And I remember being that if I wasn't a virgin on my wedding day, I wasn't deserving of a godly man. So if that didn't happen, before I got married, then I pretty much nicked myself as being worthy of anything good. I think that's where it comes from.
Wow, that sounds abusive to me, though.
It is abusive.
And I'll tell you, I didn't. Not that I was raised in a good home, in terms. My parents.
And I didn't grow up in a fundamentalist culture either.
Yeah.
The Virgin Mary.
Well, I think
I love my parents. They're wonderful parents. They've been supportive. Their belief is their fundamental belief. They believe this is true. It's not abuse to them. They love me, Bob. They're 76 and they're 80, and they would do anything for us. They come to every one of my daughter's volleyball games. This is like fundamentally what they believe is true. And I bought that bullshit, and
and they feel differently about guys.
Of course they
Really?
did.
Wow.
Well, they didn't think differently, but they were just, guys. So, they can't control themselves, so it's okay. But this wasn't even the fundamentalist culture. This was like Roman Catholicism. But that Virgin Mary issue, what other female figure is there in that religion? Honestly, come on. I can't even be a priest.
Well, there is Mary, the former prostitute, who is now a virgin.
Yeah, and she rocked. She was with Jesus all the time,
Yeah, she was the pincushion of the disciples, so they say. No, but I mean, the.
Who said that?
Nelson did.
Is Peter still there?
To see that, but
Peter, Peter,
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Peter. Hey.
But I think a lot of it stems from that whole the patriarchal superiority thing that we have in our culture, and a lot of that stems back from the Judeo-Christian roots of the country.
From beginning of time?
Well, yeah, I mean.
Well, I'd certainly argue that yes. I mean, rape as a weapon of war it has certainly been documented well before Christianity. Women as property. I think actually religion has come a long way. To be totally honest, well, not necessarily all religions, but Christianity has come a long way. I don't know when the last time I heard about a man selling his daughter, to her rapist was. But even though that's explicitly condoned in the Bible.
Well, it happens every day. It happens every day in India, Pakistan. Afghanistan, it happens every single day.
Yeah, that's why I said Christianity.
Yeah,
specific.
I
In
know
Afghanistan, it's not a lot of Christians doing that.
No, but it's just.
Well,
it's just
there
hard to
are
get
cases here in the United States where that does. It's not under the guidelines of actually an exchange of a fortune, but that does happen, and I would like to do a show on that, and I can bring the people in that has happened to. We haven't heard from Lisa Graves. She's on the show tonight. We haven't heard from Peter or Christopher Malte. Why don't you guys jump in?
Christopher said some stuff.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the standard about men and women, and I think it goes to, and I may be the unique one here, but the subculture I was a part of in high school, there was no sort of standard that was men are expected to have more or less partners. And I do have to say, to our credit, for what we did in high school, none of my friends graduated pregnant or dropped out of high school pregnant, but it was the girls who weren't supposed to be having premarital sex were the ones that graduated pregnant or got pregnant in high school.
Isn't that interesting? The ones who were under pressure to not do that are the ones that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was the ones who. So the ones who accepted it, us, our subculture, and we never called girls sluts for sleeping around. It was acceptable. We viewed our, we didn't have any preconceived Christianity or religious overtones to ourselves. All of us practiced safe sex, but those who had the pressure to not have sex didn't practice safe sex, and a few ended up walking across my graduation stage with they had a baby and they're getting their high school diploma. So I think it's the culture, and there's certain subcultures that it's acceptable in, or subgroups that don't carry that sort of connotation. I have friends that I would not consider sluts, but consider sexually liberated women that most people probably would call sluts as soon as they found out how many men they have had sex with.
Well, I think that's where people like Madonna have helped break the mold, in regards to entertainment. And you have people like Hillary Clinton and the politics, and to where I think it's becoming a more of a level playing field, at least in the cosmopolitan, metropolitan areas. It's becoming more of a level playing field. You have the backwoods people that probably, don't do that, but it's definitely different now than even when I was a kid, and I'm not the oldest one out here.
Now, I have never felt so odd man out as I do tonight. How does Madonna have anything to do with this in that respect? I don't get it. She was definitely a tease, but I don't get the impression that Madonna's message was she's having sex with all kinds of people.
No, but it was her performance style. It was her, where she broke the mold of this purity in women performance.
Challenged the social
norms.
What I mean?
She challenged the social. She had the pointy
her own
bra.
sexuality. Yeah, she owned her own sexuality. She wasn't under the control of any guy.
Right, and I think that helped kind of propel a sense of female empowerment, which I think was long overdue. And then you started to see more professional women. I can't remember the woman who headed up. I think it was Hewlett Packard or something like that.
Lewinsky.
Well, Lewinsky I think maybe set a few things back, but that was just whatever. That was we'll talk about that on another show, but.
Alex Greco, what are your ideas here?
The dress, maybe not necessarily reputation.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay,
Alex, what are your thoughts here?
I was going to say earlier, when it was a bit more in that direction, we talk a lot about the pressure and slut shaming, but and I hate saying this, but in the homosexual community, there's a lot of the opposite of that. I'm a rather modest person, and I'm kind of like a pariah in a sense in that community because I'm not a slut. I don't want to say that because I have to defend and I'd like to criticize some things that I think are realities, but I think it puts me in a difficult position where it's, you're expected, any kind of date it's heavily sexually implied, or everybody knows each other from a sexual relationship. It puts a lot of pressure on me as a guy. Yeah.
No wonder those guys always got so pissed off when I pulled that stunt in the gay bars in my 20s. No, I used to. I'll be
sleeping with them.
No, not at all. That wasn't that. See, when in my early 20s, and Alex, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to admit something that was just totally wrong that I used to do. But, I didn't have the funds that I had now. I would go to gay bars when I was in my early 20s so that they would buy me drinks. And I would play the tease because, women had done it to me all the time when I went to the regular bars. So I just figured, hey, you know what? If it happens to me, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, 3 nights a week I didn't have to pay to drink, and the other 2 I did.
I think we just need to talk about you drinking 5 nights a week.
Drinking the night.
That's a good story.
Nelson, I have to address this.
That's hilarious.
I'm sorry. When I made sure that I paid for myself anywhere I went, I just had to say that. Otherwise, I didn't go out.
Where the hell were you when I was going out on Friday night?
Melissa and Robin, it looks like you are back fully in. I mean, we kind of ran off when you were your video wasn't working there. Your audio, I think, is muted again. By the way.
Okay.
Can you unmute? Okay.
We were here all the time. We just go in and out sometimes.
This is what I
was there anything else that you guys had to add on this? Or I'm sorry, I am totally that person that uses the term guy in a general sense as well. It's another one of those gender role things.
No, it's totally fine. Yeah, well, I know, there's different terms for men and women. You hear tramp, slut, hoe. You don't hear that with men too much. And it's interesting, that there are those terms. And tramp stamp, the tramp stamp on the back of the girls sometimes get on the back. It's called a tramp stamp. It's not a regular tattoo. Why
but
tattoo?
If I'm not mistaken, tramp was actually used for men or hobos before. Then it got adopted, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of the origin of the terminology, the current usage certainly is.
Well, I think that if a guy got a tat there, I would definitely still call it a tramp stamp.
If I got a tat there, you wouldn't be able to see it.
I'm just curious.
I would hope not.
How old were you the very first time you ever heard the word whore?
It was my first word.
It's your first word. Right.
Growing up in Vegas,
That's right. Most people are in church, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, because
you'll definitely hear it if you grew up in a King James only church.
Yes. And I did.
Yeah.
That brings up another thing that Christianity does that is horrific against women. Like when they talk about their theology, like when they say that people aren't following the right false Jesus, the right guy, they call it the harlot church.
Right.
It's female. It just kind of perpetuates. Oh, and Israel prostituted itself against Yahweh by worshiping other gods. It's women is disgusting. It's really a shame. They're missing out on a lot of beauty.
You're cutting in and out. It was hard to hear. But I was curious to hear the other ages.
Love.
Because I'm sure I was like 14 or 15 before I even heard the word. And I remember the first time I heard the word, I had no clue what it meant.
I think I was in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty savvy. I was probably in like 3rd or 4th grade. Grew up on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, I was probably pretty young too.
What about you, Daryl?
6th grade.
It was a bad word, though. I went to Christian school.
Yeah, I was in grade school.
Like that.
I was in grade school because I remember asking my parents what it meant.
That's a fun conversation.
I think we were kind of okay with that word in my family. Like I couldn't swear in front. I still don't swear in front of my parents for the longest time. But whore is the replacement word for any other bad word. So we're kind of loose with that one.
Ironic choice.
Everything's planned, Greg.
Whore is the replacement. So you guys say like son of a whore and mother whore and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think. Well, before we would say slut, we would say whore for sure.
Got it.
That whole word, whore for sure.
Got it. Whore for sure.
She was a hoe, faux show.
My mother died in 1989. My father died 2 years ago. I don't believe that I ever heard a single four-letter word come out of either of their mouths in my entire lifetime, ever.
Yeah, I just when Alex just said "whore for sure," it brought to mind a quote that she was a hoe, faux show. That came from a movie. That movie it starred Steve Carell. It was called The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Anybody seen that movie?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that movie ever coming out with a woman as the lead? I mean, I think that helps really elucidate the.
Didn't see the movie, so I can't relate.
It's a comedy about a 40-year-old man that's just never had sex, and the incredible judgmentality that's put against him is apparent throughout. And of course, it's played on because it's comedy, but it very clearly illustrates the standard by which men are simply supposed to have sex well before that. I mean, I think that most people would find it odd or peculiar that a woman is a virgin at 40, but I think that for a man to be a virgin at 40 is just unthinkable unless you're like a priest.
So
and even that, most people don't buy
What's
it.
the solution to this? Because I got to be honest with you, I don't understand anybody tolerating that stuff. I don't get it. I mean, and that has nothing to do with any religious thing. What's the solution to this? It seems to me that the people who do this
raising kids like you were raised, apparently,
have deeper issues than just whether or not they have this double standard.
I mean, I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me, but I think.
Bob,
Yeah.
did you have a sister? Do you have a sister?
I have 5 sisters.
Holy crap! No wonder your parents didn't judge people for sleeping around. Oh.
Did they have? Are they as free as you are? Did they have this judgment, or you never heard them have a problem?
I've never heard anything from them on this issue ever.
Oh, awesome for them. I mean, I know people that are having marital problems because they're taught that the guy is going to be unfaithful because they can't control themselves, and they can't even trust. They never trust their husband. There's, where were you? What time did you get home? Who are you with? Blah, 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 blah. And then, it's really sad. And not only can they trust them, but doing that to them actually makes them want to go find people that really love them unconditionally and actually be with them. Wow. And not like they're perverts or anything, but they just want.
I'm pretty sure that at least 4 of my 5 sisters would have been the kind to say, "Take a hike, buddy."
To who? Your parents? Because they had sex?
No, to any guy who's going to mess around. Like, take a hike.
What if she wanted to mess around?
You're gone.
Well, what if she wanted to mess around, Bob?
What's that?
What if she wanted to mess around?
I have no idea if they did, and if they did, they didn't talk about it.
I don't know if that's necessarily exclusive to just females. I know a lot of guys that are that way about their girlfriends and their wives. When they go out, where they get suspicious, or they want to check the cell phones, or they want to check the. I don't think that it's a gender specific thing. I think it's more of an insecurity and a jealousy thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the end of our program. We have run out of time, and so what we're going to do, we're going to spend just a little bit. Yes, I understand that, but right now we're going to do something that may. Lead this into some more conversation possibly. But I would like to ask each and every one of you guys to give a final comment for the show. And let's start with Robin and Melissa.
Gee, put me on the spot. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. It's like we're asking, like, how do you change it? I don't know. I mean, I think that it's really ingrained in our society, and how you change that, I really couldn't speak to.
Fair enough.
Okay, Robin.
Yeah. I guess it's different for me because my son. I never really experienced that growing up, the whole modesty thing. It wasn't real religious. So I have different ideas on it. And my son, he is actually not your typical male. So I never really had to have the talk or to warn him about how to treat women or anything like that. He's just not that kind of guy. So it's different talking about it. But I do see the differences between the males and the females and how women are treated. If they are sleeping around, then they are sluts. But the men, they can brag about it. And that is a problem, but I don't know if there's really a solution because that's biology in a way. I mean, it was there 20 years ago, and it's probably been there since the beginning of time. So I'm not sure. As long as we, try to raise our children with empathy and to see people as fellow human beings, I think it will get better.
That's a great point. Good point, Robin.
Peter, what are your final thoughts? We have so many different opinions here tonight. I'd like to hear from you. That is what you think to be the best model here.
Yeah, well, I think the best model is sort of the model where you don't judge people. I mean, that's really hard to say, but in the punk rock ethos that I grew up in, basically from about junior high to now, it was about unity and, brotherhood or fraternity, but it was the group. The group was more powerful than the person. You loved your friends like you loved your family. And I wouldn't call my sister a whore, even though I don't have one, but I think that sort of ingraining that mentality in people in unity and brotherhood and fraternity. I hate using those terms because they are gender specific, but I think everybody knows what they mean when I say brotherhood and fraternity. I think that would be one of the best solutions is to teach people to respect other people that way.
Yeah, that's good. Daryl, you've heard all kinds of things stated tonight. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a couple I'd like to express. One of them, oddly enough, I think about something that my mother has stated about herself all her life, and that is that she considers herself to be a middle-of-the-roader. And she's always looked down upon herself because of that. And over the years, I've come more and more to respect that, because I think when we talk about a subject like this, I think most would agree that's really where we want to live. I mean, I don't think anybody wants the extreme that we can go around with no clothes on, just doing whatever we want, whatever comes to mind. I think we would all look upon that as being barbaric. But then again, I think we would also all agree that we don't want anyone to dictate that we all wear this particular set of clothes and all, look alike, and some may advocate that. But you have the extremes, and I think the thing that needs to happen is we need to move more toward the middle, if you will. Find a place that's more comfortable for everyone involved. But that's on a large scale. On a personal note, I can say that I can appreciate the relationship I have with my wife. The respect that we have for one another in this category and the relationship that we have, I haven't seen anything that I would trade it for. And, it is I'm not sure how that fits into the conversation, but it's, I've experienced pretty much both extremes. And, I like a relationship that, I guess what I'm trying to say is a relationship of respect for one another, and I think that's where we're going. I think that's where we're going with the new covenant, with conversations like we're having tonight.
That's excellent. Now, Greg Bray has been making a statement while you have been talking, and the studio here is just busting out in laughter. And so,
I just noticed. How funny.
I tell you what.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. What statement?
That is funny.
Really warm in here.
Okay, let's save Greg possibly for last. He's probably going to pray us through here.
Last one have his pants on, but-
Yeah. I don't know
I
what's
hope we
going to
don't get a
happen.
full shot there.
Yeah. Let's go to Alex
call him
Greco.
the
He really is, I think that he really pushed the envelope in some areas. Go for it, Alex.
I think the reason I'm so perfect is that when it came to conversations like this, and this is something I mentioned before, when it came to conversations discussing genders and gender roles, if we were talking about sex and sexuality, the important thing was that my parents did that together. Whether I got both opinions, I got both of their opinions at the same time. If my dad said something really, really, sexual, my mom was right there to discuss it too. So the way that they acted was that they put themselves equal to each other. So growing up, we saw that our parents were equal in decision and even in discussions about sexuality. They said, well, some women have these kind of thoughts, some men have these kind of thoughts, but they did it together. And that's why I think that my brother and I, we have a great, we're kind of like Bob in that way, that we don't really see these differences anymore, I've never seen that kind of pressure on women or slut shaming in a sense.
What?
You're also Canadian.
Yeah, I've got to ask you this question. You're so kind all the time on Facebook. What drives you to be so kind?
I'm kind?
I haven't seen anything but kind. I mean, you're hilarious, but you always have a way of doing things that really, really, really speak volumes to us. We love you so much, and so why are you this way?
I'm not, actually. I'm just being polite because it's, public. But, yeah, I'm not always peaches and cream, so. And maybe you'll see that more passion or more, grumpiness maybe in my upcoming stuff, but yeah.
Thank you. Nelson, you are in the South, and it's a much different paradigm down here, and I have not gotten into the conversation simply because we had so many tonight, and I wanted to listen. But I think you've had a lot to offer the conversation. What are your last 2 cents?
Nelson appears to be wearing a burqa. So.
He's being extremely modest.
Uh-oh. He's stating volumes.
I don't think his mic is on, or so. I don't think.
Nelson, I don't think you just heard that. Dr. Jones asked you a question, but
he asked me a question.
That you were. It was. Would you mind repeating it, Doc?
I had a wardrobe change. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean,
yes,
you're from.
Thank you for covering yourself. I was having trouble controlling myself.
Nelson, you've been into the South. You know that things are so much different here in the South with all the mindsets here in the South concerning modesty. What are your last 2 cents here?
Well, look at me. I mean, how ridiculous is this? I mean, this is what a lot of women are expected to wear, and I think it's silly. The difference, of course, is that we're out, and I'm in a weird situation with the South where I'm in probably the only part of the planet where you have to travel north to get to the South, because this is Fort Lauderdale, where we have a lot of transient New Yorkers and stuff like that. But it wasn't always that way, and yeah, it is a little bit more conservative, and there is a lot of that slut shaming. But I honestly am being. I want to be a little more optimistic about it, because I think that when you have women that are now getting into positions of power, whether you like her or not, Oprah Winfrey is probably one of the most influential people in media.
Awesome
You have Hillary Clinton, you have Condoleezza Rice, these are women.
Yes.
And I think
Rhonda Jones.
Rhonda Jones, of course, Linda Graves, the women are starting to come out of this mold, and I think it's only a matter of time that this stupid concept that we have where women are inferior to men that's going to turn upside down, because I actually think it's the opposite. And just in case my wife is watching this, no, I'm just kidding. She knows that I'm actually more of a feminist than she is, but I honestly think that when men realize the influence and the power that women can actually have, it's only a matter of time, before we're going to be the weaker ones.
Yeah.
I really think that we're going to see that soon.
I'm not going to allow that.
I always love it
cover
when
back up.
I always love it when I hear a man start saying how much we need to value women, because for so many years, they've been put to the side, and I applaud my wife. I mean, I brag about her, and she's my everything, and wow. I can't say enough goodness about her. Let's move on. We have others that we need to listen to. Christopher Mouty, what are your final comments tonight?
So many awesome things have been said. It's so tough to follow up that kind of wonderful act with all these shirtless, partially shirted men, fully clothed and fully clothed and otherwise. And also some of the smartest women, of course, I know. And so I want to make a distinction between the kind of humbleness and morality and shaming that happens to adults versus the kind that happens to adolescents, right? Because we were at one point talking about the kind of thing that happens to adults via religion, moral code, what happens at grocery stores as compared to what happens, in high school via gossip, or maybe on a college campus, which I still consider a late version of adolescence, to be honest. Because I believe that there is something to be said for people that choose to be sex forward, and other people that are offended by that can go, do something to themselves. I do think that there's something to be said for the people that choose to dress in a sex-forward way and have the confidence to do so, regardless of what other people choose to think about that. They should have the right to do it, so long as it's not so over the top that it's breaking laws. I just wanted to make that distinction. I also wanted to point out that, speaking of the adolescent kind, that the kind of rules and regulations, the unwritten rules and regulations that go into the kind of codes about morality and dress codes and what, certain people's behaviors means behind, things that are said behind people's backs, is I was lucky enough to go from one culture to another, and I would say that they're pretty extremely different. I was born and raised in Jersey by the boardwalk, by the Jersey Shore, I should say, and by mostly like Italian Americans. And then my family moved when I was a sophomore in high school to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where there are mostly like Pennsylvania Dutch Amish community, you know what I mean? So like two very completely different cultures. And so at 14 years old, I went from like one dating community to a different dating community, pardon me. And the way that things were done were very different from one to the other. So I can attest to the fact that the culture, that culture plays a role in how people dressed, how people interpreted the way people dressed, the cliques that were formed, the way that people's behavior was interpreted, and things like that. So I think that's really the end of the contribution I have tonight.
Esther Ann, what are your final comments?
Well, first I want to say that Sunday night's show, Dr. Jones with Dr. Shook, and coming through and discussing biases, that really helped me. And I think that will help me explain my thoughts because I understand them a little bit better. What I want to say is that above all else, no matter what a person believes, thinks, feels, how they treat you, it's all because of what they've been exposed to, and they're a human being. Forgiveness and love, regardless of the crime, is the most important thing for moving forward. In this, yes, I can cry a blue streak about the challenges in my life, but it's really not going to do me any good. And the bottom line is I love myself, and I don't really, I care if you don't, because you know what? That inhibits you from really receiving love from me. And it's more about my feeling sorry for you than me caring if you love me or not. So it's a huge paradigm shift, and I love you for what you do. I wish I understood more, but I'm reading everything that I don't know that Dr. Shook said. So, and I met wonderful friends through these people, even shirtless people who actually are up on my screen right now, which is really, really funny because I have a really good friend now. And I just think that we just really need to drop all this nonsense and start trying to have more empathy for people and listening. And I think that's what this group accomplishes. So this is my most favorite place in the whole world to be. I love my other friends on Facebook. I've been on Facebook for 5 years. I've got some really cool friends. I know lots of people that like others think are like prestigious because they write books and stuff. And they helped me get to this point, but I'm like so ready to live life now, you know, and be happy and to enjoy myself and to like forgive other for their view set, their mindset, because I totally get this. And like, yeah, okay, so I will this publicly when I was 18, even like.
Uh-oh, I think you broke up. Can you hear us, Esther?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? What I said was, yes, I did. Like I was taken advantage of. I was taken advantage of, and that devastated me for years. And I'm, you know, it's over, and that's okay that it did. And like, it doesn't bother me in the least anymore. It's like just sex. It was over, and now it's time to love people unconditionally, even if they have hairy chests right now, right in the center of my screen. But no, seriously, unity is cool in humanity. We are all human beings first. I don't care what you believe. You want to believe Allah, yeah, but just like try not to kill me on the way because I'm trying to love you. You know, fellowship. Like let's hang out and like laugh a lot instead of cry about all these people are making fun of us. Who really cares? Because like they have biases. You get it. And let's really try to work together because we have a huge cohesive group here. And let's change the world.
All right, that was fantastic. Absolutely.
You can hardly hear Rhonda.
Rhonda, we can barely hear.
Okay,
you.
well, Bob and Lisa, what are you guys' final thoughts?
Lisa, what do you think?
Lisa, what do you think? What about this crowd here tonight? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I can barely hear you, Rhonda. Sorry.
I know. Well, I know. It's.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for having me here tonight. I'm glad that I got a chance to hear you all. I've certainly read a lot of comments on the cult of honesty. It's been an interesting discussion. I grew up in a family that really didn't talk of it. You know, feelings and thoughts really were kind of a taboo subject. You didn't really get into that stuff. And as far as the differences between what's expected of boys and girls, you know, remaining virgins and all this, there really wasn't there was a big discrepancy while I was in the Catholic Church, but interestingly enough, my mother switched to Fundamentalist Baptist when I was 12 years old. And I would say that my experience there was more the expectation for both boys and girls was the same, but the responsibility really fell on the girls and the women to not tempt the men and the boys. I even at one point had one of the ministers who was taking me home from a babysitting job pull over and start talking to me on this dark road in the middle of the country, after dark, about how my clothing was bothering him and all this, and it was just very weird and very uncomfortable. But this was the kind of the way these people thought, and it was like even the minister did not take responsibility for his own feelings and thoughts on this. He tried to make me responsible, telling me I needed to change the way I was dressing. And so although they had the same expectation for the boys, it was the girls who were made responsible to make sure that the boys didn't stumble. And, I do not know if, because I have not been in that church for so long, in that denomination, I don't know if that's still how they're running things. But what I saw on the posts that people put, this one pastor, I can't think of his name, the one that pisseth against the wall.
Stephen Anderson.
What's his name there?
Stephen Anderson.
Yeah. What a nut. I mean, if this is what, I'm not holding out much hope if this is what, they're still continuing, the tack they're continuing to take there. But once again, I digress. Thank you so much for having me here. I've enjoyed you people so much. I love you guys. I love reading the posts. I love watching all the shows. I think you're all awesome. I really do. Keep up the good work.
She's awesome.
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, Lisa, I mean, you made more sense to me, and you really put some things out there. I wish you would have said that at the beginning, because there are so many things to go to follow up on what you said. But that's another show, I guess. But that was great. Thanks for sharing that. That's a lot of stuff to share. All right, Bob, what do you think about your wife?
I think she's awesome. And I'm extremely fortunate to that we can have each other. This is awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad she came on tonight to be with us. We had actually we were trying to get together an outfit to wear tonight that we just weren't able to put together. It wasn't obscene, but it wasn't nice. No, but. Sorry, I pulled her earplug. In terms of at least my final thoughts, though, I certainly didn't grow up in what I would call a good home. There was a lot of emotional distancing and abandoning, and a lot of expectations that were unreasonable. It was certainly an upper middle class home. It was as if we were expected to just kind of everybody grow up, go to college, and become millionaires, and just maintain that look and that expectation. And but at the same time, I got to say, there's this facet to our culture that I don't think we ever participated in, and I'm not so sure that I'm I seem to have missed that facet, and I don't care. I don't think I missed something I needed to really participate in, but it is odd to feel like I can't relate to a lot of the things we were talking about tonight. That these differences in expectation and that because we were always so busy. My mom and dad were always busy being the kind of people who whatever they had to say was based on something very intelligent, very appropriate to who we were as the people we were, and so these things just never were a part of that. And I wasn't even raised in what we call a Christian home. I didn't start paying attention to that kind of theology until I was 18. So I didn't even get that stuff down my throat. So it's odd though. I cannot relate very well to a lot of these ideas.
That's extra good. Hey, Bob, Greg, his mom and dad made his outfit for tonight, and so, Greg, what are your final thoughts?
He did a good job.
That was excellent.
Come on, Greg, talk.
It's on me to talk now. That was the
Go for it.
funniest thing I've heard in a while. I'm making a bit of a statement here, and I think Nelson made a fantastic counter statement. I couldn't get my hands on a burqa quickly enough, but I figured I would go the opposite route here because, frankly, this is pretty acceptable for me. Awkward, perhaps, for some. I know that Nelson was having a little bit of a hard time handling it, even, which is why he went to go get the towel or blanket. Oh,
you know it, baby.
I think we have a very, very obvious double standard when it comes to sexual behaviors, to appropriate dress, to a lot of the different, I guess, even ways, terminology that we refer to men and women in this culture. And almost all of it puts men into a position of power or greater liberation. There's fewer restrictions on what men are allowed to do, allowed to say, and allowed to be in this culture. There are, of course, still some expectations and norms that are negative for men, in that they cause us to act or expect us to act in a macho or masculine culture that is predetermined. I wanted to address just one term that I heard earlier, and that was typical man. I think actually that was Robin that said that about her kids not being or her husband not being typical man. Son, yes, the son not being typical. I have a hard time with just the term even typical man or typical woman not being addressed in what we are discussing here, and that what does that mean? I mean, just the fact that we can say that typical man, and specifically the context in which you used it, it was somebody who is sexually aggressive or somebody who is expected to be advancing upon women. And you said because he's not the typical man, you didn't need to have the talks about how to respect women. So, I mean, culturally speaking, there's I think a pretty well defined stereotype of what it is to be a man. And one of those things is, sadly, to not have a lot of respect for women. That, I think, is really kind of my closing point, aside from one last thing, and that what I'm wearing right now is exactly what I wore in a very public place earlier this summer when I went to a water park with my family. And while I was at that water park, I saw a mother and daughter walking around wearing a burkini. It's I had to look it up. It's a honest to goodness thing. They make full body bathing suits with a headscarf. This one did have the face open, but it literally fit up and around the face because the modesty restrictions within Islam are that much more severe than what they are. Of course, there were Pentecostal women there as well, with the very long hair held up in as close of a bun as they could, and dresses on their swimsuits as well. So yes, these double standards do exist, because you know what the Muslim men that were there with that mother and daughter wore? Exactly what I was wearing. Nothing different. That's all I've got. Thank you for joining into this conversation.
Well,
Are we
Adam,
still live?
Adam, since you are still here with us, that is Greg. You are the first Adam, correct? And
The second Adam.
and since you have been talking with snakes, I thought that it would be appropriate for you to close this show out in prayer.
Oh, I don't have one prepared today. Actually, I do, to some extent, and that is because at the Freedom from Religion Foundation convention this weekend, I saw State Senator Juan Mendez from Arizona, and his invocation that he made in front of the Arizona State Senate was inspiring, and I wanted to, borrow from that or sample from it a little bit, and saying that for this prayer, this invocation, I don't want you to bow your heads. That's often how people are asked to act in this situation. But what I'd like you to do is instead to look around at everybody else in the room with you, in this hangout with us, and to, for just a moment, appreciate what unites us. The fact that every single one of us is human. We are individual people, and in that, we can all find commonality. And if that was the only thing that we focused on, instead of all of the things that divide us, I think that in general, this world would be a better place. So my prayer is for all of us to consider that first from here on out.
Amen.
Amen.
You're here.
Amen.
That was awesome. That was awesome. This is at the
Hear, hear.
end of our
Hear, hear.
show, and I hate that we're out of time, but the Google Hangout can continue. But this has been a wonderful program tonight. Hopefully you will join us next week, and also this Sunday. We have a lot of things going on. And think about joining the Cult of Honesty / the New Covenant group. This is a wonderful place to be with a lot of wonderful people. We are diverse, that is, in our ideas, but somehow we're coming together. We're seeing the same picture, and this is what happens when you get atheists and theists together. We can move forward together. So what do you think, honey?
Well, I know we're having a very immodest person with us Sunday night.
Yeah, the naked pastor's coming our way, so he's not
I love
modest at
him.
all. And so, wow, it's going to be one of those things.
I guess so. I think that's it for me.
I
That's
love
it.
David.
He's awesome.
Well, you guys have fun tonight, and bye-bye.
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 They continue.